Alright, so after the last video I put out on the Serpent's Hand, you guys told me I got the wrong take. And frankly, after reviewing the comments, I agree with you. Mainly because, one, the library, other things like that. So, the Serpent's Hand moves up, above the GOC. The GOC is once again my most hated faction. I invite comments that tell me that I got a bad take on something. I invite it. And the reason I do is because one of the things I tell people a lot when I'm talking about, forming opinions on theory crafting and stuff like that, if you have an opinion that is undefensible, why are you having it? And so when some of the comments came through that were sitting there challenging what I was saying, I looked at what I had said, I looked at what the information I had, and I was like, okay, I don't have enough information to make this call. I made a call prematurely, and that's what I did. So, one of the comments, though, said, if I don't like the GOC and I don't seem to like the Serpent's Hand, then I'm going to hate the Daevites. And we're checking out the Daevites today. So, with all that being said, this was requested by the One Who Defies, and this is by the Exploring series on the Daevites. So, we're just going to jump right into this. Here we go.
The Dayites.
Davites.
The study of ancient cultures, civilizations, and events is of course one largely focused on the past, with occasional new discoveries in the present providing new details, but the past is largely set in stone. The history of the Dayites, however, within the SCP universe, is one that has a very curious connection to time, existing in the past, of course, but ever creeping into the present.
Okay.
It wouldn't be an SCP topic without some sort of anomalous context, and so this video will discuss the Dayites, their strange expanding history, and some of the other SCPs related to them.
Okay.
Unlike some other groups or factions in the SCP universe, the Dayites are based primarily around a single SCP, SCP-140. SCP-140 is a book titled A Chronicle of the Devas, copyrighted sometime in the 1900s, and written by an unknown author.
Okay.
Oddly, there are far more pages contained in the book than could actually be held by the binding, but that's just the beginning of its anomalous properties. Those who read the book feel paranoia, unease, and nausea, potentially due to the unsettling material held within, although some do claim to smell the odor of dried blood coming from the book.
That's always unpleasant.
Regardless, readers feel compelled to continue reading the book, calling the text fascinating. Additionally, if SCP-140 comes into
This thing makes people into a cult, doesn't it?
contact with any fluid, more text will be added to the book. And so, due to the fascinating compulsion that readers have, they will attempt to bring any fluid they can to the book to add to it, including their own blood.
Wonderful.
The book itself is of course a chronicle of the Dayite civilization, which existed thousands of years ago, originating in what is now south-central Siberia. At times, the Dayites operated as a collection of city-states, and their civilization of course evolved and changed over time, but primarily they functioned underneath a theocratic aristocracy. The majority of the Dayites served under a ruling class known as the Devas, who routinely practiced cannibalism and magic rituals.
Lovely.
Evidence suggests that the Devas unnaturally extended their lives, possibly because of these rituals, and that in fact they were different enough from modern humans to be considered a separate species. The civilization as a whole believed in human sacrifice and blood rituals, and they were largely a militaristic society, conquering their enemies and building large urban centers on the backs of slave labor. It is believed that the Dayites were a
I say again, slavery is a shit idea.
matriarchal society, in which women generally possessed higher status than men.
Okay.
The book goes into great graphic detail about the different blood rituals, sacrifices, battles, conquests, and even the daily life of the Dayites. Archaeologists working for the SCP Foundation have discovered ruins and different artifacts from the Dayite civilization in locations such as Siberia, northern Iran, Mongolia, and China, signifying that this culture did actually exist. The Davites apparently created a number of anomalous artifacts and creatures, some of which have been found and contained by the Foundation, and the rest seemingly lost in time. An early reading of the book showed the Daevite civilization being utterly crushed by the Chinese, killing off practically all of the Devas and ending their reign. In most history books, that would be pretty much the end of the Daevite story, but this is where the true anomalous properties kick in.
Okay.
As mentioned, fluids that come into contact with the book add to its contents, but not just adding details to existing material. It also changes and adds to their history. Their defeat at the hands of the Chinese was changed to a mere setback, along with other defeats, and new individuals and events are continually added. By itself, this would be merely interesting, but the fact that Foundation archaeologists discovered new artifacts and materials that match this new history means the world's timeline is actually being rewritten along with it. Right now, the Daevite timeline ends hundreds of years ago, and modern history seems to be unaffected by these timeline changes. But if SCP-140 keeps getting added to, it could result in a complete restructuring of the modern world. Fortunately, SCP-140 is locked up tight by the Foundation, but unfortunately, a number of identical copies are out in the world, each capable of adding to the Daevite history.
Lovely.
So far, the Foundation have found and destroyed dozens of copies, but at this point, 2 expansion events have occurred while SCP-140 was contained in its vault. SCP-140 represents a massive danger to the current structure of the modern world, and recovery of the other copies is a top priority. The Davites are mentioned in a number of other SCPs contained by the Foundation, and that number is only likely to grow as time goes on.
I'm going to pause this here just to say something about what I'm hearing so far. So basically, like this is one of the more it seems innocuous, but it's one of the more dangerous SCPs out there, because just imagine what happens if one person dies that is an ancestor of somebody major in the current timeline, or I'm a big fan of alternate history, and this one activates my almonds. So there we go.
But I'll take the time to just discuss a certain few. There are several SCPs that refer to the Deva's rituals, specifically in connection with botany. SCP-392 is a plant species created by the Davites in 800 BCE, resembling a peach tree, but instead of growing fruit, it grows human heads.
Why?
These heads are all physically identical, believed to be the head of a male sex slave who served a Deva, but the heads lack eyelids and contain an SCP-392 seed in their skull cavity.
Why?
These heads respond to certain physical stimuli, such as their eyes following a moving hand, and seem to respond more actively to females than males. When removed from the tree, either manually or when they fall off, the heads cease activity and begin to decompose, with the decomposing head serving as fertilizer for the seed, if possible. SCP-3140 are massive tree-like entities, believed to have been used for warfare by the Davites around 11,000 BCE, although the leading theory is that they were originally created by SCP-1000, sometime prior to that,
don't know what
simply
SCP-1000
modified
is.
by the Davites. SCP-3140 stands about 12 meters tall, although it's possible ancient members of the species stood much taller, and seem to be formed from a mixture of the Tibetan cypress and the Japanese cherry, with wooden legs possessing full articulation.
No.
SCP-3140 is covered in a large number of glyphs, tattoos, and Daevite iconography, and also possess 3 large barrels attached to it.
Barrels?
Although it's believed that these barrels were a later modification, as they are not present on newly born members of the species. Anyone that places their left hand in a specific recess on SCP-3140 and speaks a command in Davic can order the entity to follow certain directions. These commands include moving, stomping, stabbing with extendable bone spikes, and presumably firing some incendiary substance from the barrels, although the entity contained by the Foundation only billows smoke when given the fire command.
Huh.
SCP-3399 is a species of trees activated by the blood of an individual that will grow leaves that display images resembling memories carried by the individual. Seeds grown from these trees will begin to show images on their leaves of potential future events, usually partners whom the individual could conceive a child with. Future trees grown from the seeds will continue to show future events related to the potential offspring, and the trees grown will also reflect any genetic disorders carried by the individual that would be passed on to offspring. It's believed these trees were utilized by Dayite royalty to help craft the best bloodlines.
That's really interesting.
There are also references that connect both the early ancestors of the Church of the Broken God and the Sarkic cults to the Daevite civilization. It's believed that Sarkicism originated from Daevite slaves that overthrew their rule, eventually going to war with the Daevites. The Sarkic cults originally crushed the Daevite civilization, but thanks to SCP-140, the Daevites bounced back once again. The Mechanites, likely one of a large number of smaller cults amidst the Daevites, broke away from the Daevites and were at best temporary allies against the Sarkists, and most likely indifferent towards the Daevites. The Daevites seem to have clashed with a number of kingdoms and religious organizations, and as time keeps getting rewritten, so does the number of their conflicts grow.
Lovely.
The Daevite civilization is one intertwined with blood rituals, human sacrifices, slavery, and the Anomalous, but those concepts would be considered mostly standard fare for an ancient civilization in the SCP universe.
Those things would be considered standard fare for pretty much global up until around maybe the when was the last of that had? As far as human still going on today. Human sacrifice is probably still going on today. What am I talking about?
SCP-140 is really the most perplexing element in their history, as it's believed by some that the Daevite civilization didn't even exist in our timeline until that book's publication. One of the most commonly accepted theories is that the Daevite kingdom existed in an alternate dimension, and some process resulted in them intermingling into ours. Whether the process responsible for this is one of the Daevites' rituals, or some other third party, is up in the air, but the damage is already done, and will likely only continue to grow worse. Additionally, it's also debatable if the Mechanites and Sarkics would have existed without the presence of the Daevites, or if SCP-140 is also responsible for their creation as well. It's generally accepted that the past stays in the past, but when it comes to the Daevites, the past keeps creeping up.
Okay. Alright, SCP-140 was a fish originally found in the office of deceased historian Redacted. The previous owner was discovered in his office at Redacted University, having expired from self-inflicted lacerations on both wrists. Redacted's colleagues claimed during interviews they discovered a note in faded ink in Redacted's handwriting next to SCP-140. Redacted's note said, "I have to know, I'm sorry." Okay, so let me just unpack a little bit of this. So, this civilization and this SCP, this faction, he didn't really get into what they're doing now. And the kind of the things that they go into now. They're probably still doing human sacrifices. It would not surprise me in the slightest. The head tree is just not right, okay? Look, I'm just saying, the head tree isn't right. I would, if you told me, hey, would you like to be a tree? And your face can look out on everybody, blah, blah, blah. I'd tell you to go fuck yourself. No, I don't want to deal with that. I'm ugly enough. But, all things considered, I like this video. I want to know more. You guys told me I'd hate them, but right now I just have a boatload of information to go on, and I'm not gonna like the civilization was a train wreck, but so were like if you're talking 11,000 BC up until even today, there are still civilizations out there. There are still groups out there that practice human sacrifice, that practice slavery, that practice all these other kind of things. We still. This is why the aliens won't talk to us. I mean, this is why. Because we're still doing this stuff. In any case, oh yeah. This was a really good video. I learned a lot from this. I know I've heard the Davites before. I've heard of them, but it was unrelated to SCP whatsoever. So, I might have to be doing some research later tonight. I really enjoy this. I really enjoyed this video because there's so much alternate history that could happen because of this one SCP, which makes it equally dangerous but yet fascinating. In any case, I'm going to be putting all of the Exploring Series links in the description down below. You're going to have my links down there as well. Tomorrow, I'll be checking out A Fan with Too Much Time's next episode of Star Wars vs. 40K. I can't wait for that. This video was excellent. This video was very, very enjoyable, and I would have liked to seen this level of explanation on, more of what they do. But I think when I was watching the one on the Serpent's Hand, I took all the bad, and with this, there's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of information. In any case, thank you for the recommendation. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe, and leave comments if you want to let me know something. Please just leave a comment. I'll do my best to check it out, and I'll catch you guys next time. And I gotta bring this thing up to hit the button. Yay!